With regard to the programs at Oxnard College, our process started in August. As Dr. Edinburgh has indicated, we started with a chancellor's retreat that we had in terms of looking at meeting the board goals. And at that point in time, we had no program discontinuance process. So we dialogued as to how we start this whole process to be able to look at that. In order to meet the board goals, we came up with 4 generalized guidelines to be able to look at respective programs, identify which ones we might consider. Those included consolidation of programs across the district, duplication of programs in the community, productivity and efficiency, courses and disciplines that are available to meet the degree or certificate requirements within the district. So we looked at those, and I did analysis with my management team at Oxnard College. We had identified 8 possible programs that would fall in those categories, probably a combination of 2 or 3 of those elements. It's not only just one. So as we went through the process, we know we wanted to get involvement with our faculty and staff. At Oxnard College, we have a 2-step process for planning and budgeting. One is normally the program review process, which would start in the fall, would end in late November, December. So then they would go to the Planning and Budgeting Council. Normally in January, we go to the spring to have their analysis and give me direct recommendations as the president about how we would affect the budget, would be cuts, etc. And that's what we've done the last 3 years. However, given the change of timing that was required, I needed to make recommendations to the chancellor by early December. So the normal process wouldn't have been feasible because we couldn't get all that in one semester. So I moved to point 2, the Planning Budgeting Council. They're the ones that make direct recommendations to me. So I took the recommendations to them and asked them to provide the input to me directly with regard to these programs. And in lieu of not having any program discontinuance process, and we had a draft at that time, I recommended to them that there's data that they should look at in reviewing each one of these programs so that they could make a judgment about them and provide some of that to me. The data that was provided, and they agreed to accepting this data, and this did come from the program discontinuance model that is working its way through. The data that was provided to them were job placement data from 2007-2008, projected workforce needs, enrollment data, productivity, success rates, gender, ethnicity, age, enrollment status, educational goal, area of residence, majors, certificates, and degrees awarded. And the data was provided for 5 years. This, in essence, what we gave them was data that would normally be provided to the PEPC or the Program Review Committee. And so they looked at it, and then as they went through, and they also began, the co-chairs adjusted their schedule so that instead of meeting once a month, they went to twice every other week. So they had time to begin to analyze this and take into account. They looked at it. They also asked for additional data from me, which we provided to them. Two key pieces of data they wanted were the costs per FTES in each of the programs, as well as the number of students that were identified in these programs that were in or on EOPS, financial aid, or EAC, student disabilities. So I provided all that data to them. And during the process, I know students were there providing input. I think some faculty provided input into all this. Certainly they could have asked any information from the deans, or they could have asked faculty to present from the different programs. So they had a full latitude of getting all the information they needed. So after all of that, and I gave them a deadline on November 16th to provide me their input so that I could utilize that information and incorporate that into my recommendations to the chancellor. However, after all of that, I really didn't get the input that I had asked for. What I got were 3 recommendations They included to add athletics and OCTV to the instructional list. Which is, I did meet with them afterwards and I told them I couldn't do that because athletics is not an academic program and nor is OCTV. OCTV is an instructional delivery method. It was designed originally to deliver television courses via television. These were the earlier days of distance education. We are evolving, so it is not an academic program, as it's called, OCTV. We do have a television program that is approved by the board that can lead to a certificate or degree, but that is not OCTV. The second recommendation they made was do not eliminate any programs of instruction. And then the third was to use the unallocated reserves so that OC would not have to have any cuts at the campus for 12-13. So I took their recommendations and thanked them for the work, and I said, well, that's not going to help me in the deliberations and making it. So I went back and looked at the data, reviewed it again with my management team, and focused in on three primary data sets, but in overall, and those included the 3 years of productivity data, 3 years of degree completion data, employment projections in the local area and regional areas. So very similar to Moore College, I looked at that to try to make some determinations which one of these programs would we want to be able to recommend for discontinuance. So after all of that, I have bringing to you for consideration our recommendations for 3 programs and 1 discipline. The first one is accounting, and the recommendation for it is to discontinue the associate degree and certificates in accounting. However, we would retain 2 core courses, ACCT R101 and R102. Those courses are fundamentally principles of financial accounting and principles of managerial accounting. The reason we would want to keep those is because those are 2 required courses for the business program. And so they need to have that as the background. And when I looked at the data too, as well, those courses are a contributing factor to the lack of a persistence rate, and I'll get that in a second. So I looked at the data, we had relatively low productivity for this program compared to our target. For these programs, our average of 3 years for fall productivity was 478 and 502 for spring. And the backdrop to that is where we are now today is at 546 is our productivity number. So you can see fall well below that number. In addition, as I looked at the completion rates, this program produced 17 associate degrees and 12 certificates over the last 3 years. So that's an average about 3 degrees, or 4 degrees, 5 degrees plus a year, and about 4 certificates. With the number of declared majors we supposedly have on our campus, we're hardly producing any degrees related to the demand. So while I think we're getting a lot of students starting the program, they're probably taking these core courses for business, but they're not persisting in getting through to completion. When I looked at the job projections, it was based on our Center of Excellence data that's provided to us. It is low to moderate job growth for accountants, but accountants positions require bachelor's degrees. Associate degrees will not make you an accountant. What our program is really producing are entry-level clerk positions. And remember, this is supposed to be a career technical education program. So I think we have some confusion as to its purpose, that it's a transfer program, and it is not a transfer program. So when I looked at all this data, we said, this one, looking at overall that just we should eliminate those certificates and degrees, but retain those core courses that we would need to support students in the business program, and for those who are interested, they could get their introductory courses in accounting. The one faculty member in this area would be able to be retained to teach those courses and teach other additional business courses. So we will not lose the faculty member from Oxnard College in this arena. So that's the recommendations for accounting. The second program is Computer Information Systems, and the recommendation would be to discontinue the associate degrees and certificates in Computer Information Systems and Office Information Systems. But then again, retain certain core courses, which would be CIS 401, CIS, these numbers don't mean a whole lot to you, but there's 4 courses that would be retained because they are required courses for our third related Computer Information Systems program, which is Computer Applications and Office Technologies, which is a very viable program. So again, we would retain elements of that. When I looked at their productivity, again, it was low to average. This program, productivity numbers were for average of 3 years for fall of 515 and spring 478. Again, and you would think that computer information systems, we should have full classes, those numbers should be very high. So for a program like this, it is not getting the enrollment that it should have. What was more problematic for me that over the last 3 years, this program has only produced 3 associate's degrees and 2 certificates. What does that tell you? There's not any students maybe taking some core courses, again, for maybe introduction courses, etc., which those ones we would retain to do, but they're not getting through and graduating. In terms of the job growth, it's projected to be relatively low. Entry-level positions, according to the data, says you really don't need an associate's degree. For entry-level positions, you can get learning on the job training to start. And similar to the EMT program at Moore Park, these entry-level courses are available in high schools, ROP, and the adult education programs. They're doing the training that we're doing. So there's a lot of access to this kind of core programming in the community. And then last but not least, that the 2 faculty members in this program would also be retained at Oxnard to teach those core courses as well as do other load in business related areas that would overlap. And we have enough work to keep them employed at Oxnard College. So eliminating the degrees and certificates in 2 areas. But we are retaining the 3rd program area and retaining the core courses for those. The 3rd program is the Radio Motion Picture Television program, and the recommendation is to discontinue associate degrees and certificates in television. And again, likewise, looking at the same data, in terms of its productivity, this program's average fall productivity is 489, and for spring it's 443. So that's well below these other numbers I referenced before. But to be fair, part of the reason for that is because they have limited lab space. I think we have a lab of about 20 computers, and so they will never get much beyond that. Similar to that, exactly. You pointed that out. We might be able to infuse a couple of other computers here and there, but part of its productivity is related to that it's a lot of lab-based coursework. With regards to its completion rates, again, this program has produced 9 associate's degrees and 1 certificate over the last 3 years. Again, you're going to ask what's going on. I do suspect what's also going on again. Students are taking core courses and joining that, but they're not getting through and completing degrees and certificates. And if they are indeed getting jobs, it's kind of information. I don't know that. I can't tell from the data what's actually going on with that. But Again, just like the other programs, we're not having students complete the degrees and certificates available to them. With regard to job growth, and again, the data tells us that there's relatively low job growth projected. This is new growth. Many entry-level positions can be trained via on-the-job training. Again, we have the Moore Park College offers a similar program. We also have a need for some additional infrastructure build-up needs. The program in this, the instructor in this program would be transferred to Moore Park College to help build theirs if this were to, because they do have a similar program. But I'd like to address a couple of areas related to this. There's a lot that has been made about transportation and what happened to the students. I think first and foremost, for any program that's discontinued, to meet accreditation standards, we have to have a teach-out plan that we would get together students who are in the programs. We will have to provide the courses so they can complete the program of instruction. So that will be done if this were to be approved. And the students that are currently there will have the opportunity to complete. What would happen is that the future students would be advised to go into the Moore Park program. Now, how would we help in this transition in doing all that? Two things have already been occurring. One, our Vice Chancellor, Sue Johnson, has already done some investigative work on providing transportation to Moore Park College. And we have, I think, a very viable, costed approach that would be able to allow us to provide transportation to Moore Park College as needed by a provider at least twice a day, minimally, to Moore Park, going back and forth if needed. But we could work on this. Is just preliminary. We haven't gotten to all the details yet. Sue, I didn't know if you want to say anything about that.
We've done preliminary discussions with all of the mass transportation providers in the district to see what we could purchase for dedicated routes. And so we have many options. We didn't proceed further until we see exactly what the results are, what classes are needed, when they'll be offered, and what specifics we have. But we've done it in general terms on if we buy 2 routes or if we move students between all 3 colleges, if we use small vehicles like a 24-passenger or a full bus. So we have many options that we can decide between once we know what the exact need is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The second thing we've also dialogued is Dr. Edinger and I have already talked about the feasibility of offering some courses at the Oxnard College facility. So if we have core courses in television and to take advantage of the facility that we do have, there's nothing that says we can't offer some of those at Oxnard College for our students in the Oxnard area. This would help alleviate some of the transportation, make it more convenient for them to be able to do that. At least from my perspective, it's transparent whether they get a degree from Moore Park or Oxnard, if it's in the same field, and if they can take core courses more locally, so that we can mitigate some of these other concerns, legitimate concerns students have had with regard to that. And so we've done initial dialogues, and Dr. Edinger is very accommodating and willing to work with us to be able to see what we can do to meet that need for our students. And I'm also very concerned that students get to be able to complete the teach-up, but also for future students who may be interested in this discipline. And as indicated, there might be other opportunities to partner with other agencies and communities to be able to enhance some of the opportunities in this area. So we haven't done all that exploration yet. That completes the recommendation for the television program. And the last one is a discipline. It is not a program, it's just a discipline, ceramics. This discipline has no full-time instructor, so it's just some adjunct faculty teaching about 4 or 5 ceramics courses. If we eliminate this, there are still 12 other fine arts courses that are available to assist students to meet general education options. Ventura College also offers ceramics, so they can go there if they want to have that kind of experience in doing that. One of the things I've had about the enrollment is that we've had to have concurrent enrollment in 4 levels of ceramics all at once just to make a class go. So if you were to separate them out, they're not viable as separate classes. One of the concerns that was addressed early on was the fact that students wouldn't be able to have a 3-dimensional experience. Well, we do have other courses in sculpture that would retain at the college. So students can have sculpture if they want a 3-dimensional experience. And last but not least, that ceramics, as I looked at, because this is supposedly a transfer course, for many art programs at the university level, ceramics is not required to earn a bachelor's degree. At best, for most arts courses at the university, it's an elective. So I think in all the courses, and I asked our articulation officer to look at that, I think we only found 2 universities that would require ceramics as part of their art program if students were interested in that. The last thing I would want to mention to you is you've asked Trustee Blum, as we looked at across the board in sports, we are also going to suspend 3 sports. One of those men and women's basketball and women's volleyball. So that concludes my presentation.
Let's start with Trustee Perez, and we'll work this way and we'll get back around to you. Thank you for the reiteration of some of this information. I'm sure we'll revisit it again tomorrow and maybe even next week. In the section under the background for your radio motion picture television, you say, make a statement, there is need for additional funds to complete the infrastructure of the television studio. Not, do you have a dollar amount on, and if you don't have it tonight, that's fine.
Well, I can give you some general numbers.
Sorry, what's your question? What's the dollar amount, what's the value of those estimated infrastructure costs necessary to, well, one, transition to a total digital environment and complete the infrastructure of the television studio?
Right. The last number that was provided to me was based on input from the faculty and staff. There was about $150,000 was needed to complete it. They have moved to a total digital environment and to complete some of the things that our bond did not pay for, like lighting grids, etc. I did ask our executive vice president to try to update those numbers. I think she has a little bit of updated data on that, because it's a range. There was actually a plan for a 3-year plan to be able to move towards getting all things we would want to have to make it a state-of-the-art program over a 3-year process. I think the plan was going to cost us around $400,000. But we've done only incremental purchasing of some of that. We have not been able to implement that plan due to budget reductions, etc. But I think the latest iteration, Erica?
The digital piece itself would cost between $50,000 to $75,000 to completely do digital. In addition, we would need to actually move where the cable feed is coming into the college from where it is currently coming in over to the new performing arts building, and that would cost anywhere from another $10,000 to $15,000 as well. So right now, you get anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 to have completely digital technology.
That doesn't include the lighting that we still need and some other elements, equipment that was requested. But we have a whole list of things that was requested of the program.
May I piggyback on that?
Sure.
Well, I just
Yeah,
wanted
you can back on that.
to,
See, we don't know when to take you seriously, Steve. That's the problem.
that cabling, wouldn't that have been a part of the
bond cost to get it to where the,
That's what I thought, but apparently that was not part of the cost structure that allowed us to do that. I mean, we can look at that into it again, but I had
no,
assumed
well, I
that it
don't
was
have
done
any
too.
reason,
but
I'm
you-
sure
you want-
that they would have done it.
Yeah,
But if you could double check. it'd be great.
yeah, well, I am gonna double check it, but no, you would think that that would be logical that you would do that. But it's not part of the building, because I guess it's a feed, so it's
Oh,
not,
maybe it's a
yeah, because it's a cable, it's not
utility fee.
part of the structure, yeah.
These next two statements are probably just that, statements or questions, and maybe just the beginnings of deliberation in this process. It should, the statement is also written, it should be noted that the class size is limited due to lab space, and thus the program will find it difficult to improve productivity. Well, that could be said for, so they're being penalized just by physical constraints that they're there, right? Even though they can be fully utilized, there is a cap on their productivity.
Yes, there's a cap on productivity for dental hygiene
Right.
and any of the
Right.
programs, but if you want to compare productivity, remember there's only one factor. I will give you an example. Just
Well,
look
I
at dental.
don't, we don't.
Well, as
I
a
don't want to
reference.
cut you off, but my point is just that, and yes, it can apply to others, but it seems almost unfair to penalize it. I think the statement is made that productivity is low, but it's through no fault of the
No,
program.
I agree, and that's why I wanted to
I'm
caution.
trying to reconcile all these competing statements.
But we have other programs that are,
Right.
the productivity is low, but we're keeping them.
And you know, when you shared the idea of the transportation plans that are development phase
Right.
now, great idea, but now I've just thought of, well, what's the unintended consequence or the impact to that student who, yes, you're providing the transportation for them to continue in a certain direction, but what does that, how does that impact their ability to take other classes at their home campus?
Well, that's why, in dialoguing with Dr. Ettinger, we offer some of those courses under their aegis, but at Oxnard College,
Okay.
so that then they can stay on campus and take other gen ed courses, etc.
Trustee Perez, I mean. Now we're even.
I have some of the same concerns about, well, let me go back to accounting. I have a question there. Let's see, the productivity rates, you said were 478 and 502, and that a good rate would be 546?
And that's what we're producing.
That's what would be, okay.
That's where we are.
Can you
today.
share with me if you were to go and say we need this to be 546 and it's at 502, what would that entail? What would they need to do? I'm just trying to get an idea how much work that is, how much effort that is.
That's a good question. Well, first of all, we would want to probably have to expand number of sections to be able to have more enrollments, and those would have to fill more seats. I would have to look at the average class enrollment, and they would have to up by probably 3 to 4 students per section. Just to,
Is it a lot? I mean, if it was something that said that let's try to do that over the next year and some, I'm just trying to get an idea how far we are.
yeah.
I think in addition to increasing the numbers of students in the classes, it would also mean having fuller sections in the more advanced classes that lead to degree completion. And that's been a chronic problem.
Okay.
That students get through those first couple of
And
classes.
that's my next question.
And then they don't
Yeah.
continue onto the other classes. And even after, for example, in my office last semester, when we were low enrolled in more advanced class, we called every student who was qualified to take that class, who had taken the previous class in the previous 4 semesters, and we were still only able to add 5 more students to that more advanced class. Now it allowed us to run the class, but not with very good numbers.
Okay. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just I appreciate the information. You answered my question. is it possible that students, we're looking at completion rates like AAs and certificates, is it possible that a clerk that's working at business would turn around and go and take a couple courses, or their employer might send her, or if she's starting, is it possible that they would just go in and take the course and maybe not be interested in an AA degree or interested in a certificate, that they're just going in to take what they need?
That's possible.
Okay.
That's why we want to retain at least those core courses in accounting.
But those courses, I'm sorry, those courses would be for transferring to an AA degree.
But they can also take it just to have a course. If that, giving you an example, they can go in and take the principles of accounting. We would have that available. If they want anything beyond that, that we wouldn't offer, then they could go to internal college and take
Yeah,
more
I
advanced
guess
courses.
what I'm trying, a concern I had is when I spoke with one of the speakers here, and then I had asked, how could I forget? Okay, Robert, I'm sorry, Robert. Is one of the concerns I have is that when we look at the types of students that are taking that, I'd like to know what are the types of students taking that. I'd like to know like some, whether it's age, gender, I mean just the type of student that's taking those kinds of courses. If you could get that information to us, I'd just like to know. See, one of the things, and this gets into a little bit of the transportation thing, is that one thing, and I don't know, I think you would agree, people from, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist at Ventura Moore Park, okay? So I'm not trying to, don't get down on me because I'm getting into Oxnard, okay? Okay, all right. So anyway, I'm just talking about what I think I know, okay? I don't think I know more about what you guys have going on. So with that disclaimer, I think that Oxnard is a great, we have students that may take longer to get a degree, and they work part-time, a lot of them. I'm not saying a lot of students, but I'm just saying the type of student that have, that's why evening classes are, I've seen it in the evening, and I'm not trying, all colleges are busy at the evening, but I'm just thinking that it's the older, the type of people I see and things that there may be an issue when it comes to transportation. I'm thinking it could be children, it could be people that have children, that have families that are working part-time, that are taking courses, fitting it in, getting off of their job and going, taking the course. Whereas it would be limiting when we talk about transportation. When I think about the accounting classes, when they're offered, how they're offered, could it be that maybe we're not offering them in the evening enough, and maybe that's why they're not maybe being taken? Are they not being offered in the time where the people would take them, so maybe instead they're going somewhere else? I don't know. I'm just saying that could, so we're saying, well, they're not getting degrees and they're not getting certificates, but maybe it's how we do it. I don't know.
And it could very well be, we'd have to do further analysis on that.
Yeah,
But if, let's assume we were offering evening, if we're doing it meeting to need now, they're still not getting through. That's part of our problem, but we could also offer online courses, make it convenient for them, which is, we are doing more and more of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to know more about, because we talked about cutting it, I'd like to know what it is that the down effect of what we're doing. What are the impacts? So we talk about what we're saving, and in fact, this goes for all the cuts. This is what I'm thinking. We're talking about what we're saving, but I want to look at the human cost, or the cost of not having that class there, because we make conscious decisions. We have nursing programs. We have the dental hygiene program that we know, and we just talked about some of the other courses that we know do not have enrollment and they don't cover their costs. We make a conscious decision about that. And I'm just saying that I'm not suggesting that we start to do that because we can't afford to do that all over. But that we're just really looking at what is going to be the impact if we do this, and the type of student that's in there and who's taking it, and might shed a little bit of light. So I'd just like to know more information about that. In regards to the transportation from Oxnard to Moore Park, I mean, it's kind of like the journalism thing that was brought up, because I was a part of it. We were here, and we had 3 different papers, and we were doing this, and we had the same old thinking, you can't combine them, and we had journalism, and now journalism doesn't exist, I guess. It just didn't work. Okay, but technology's changed now too. It probably would have had some result that needed to change. But I'm just saying that the whole transportation thing and being able to take, and at that time, I guess that was until recently, Moore Park College faculty members teaching either coming down or they were teaching through video, or, I mean, there was an effort made with that, but
Right.
we kind of know that it's really difficult. It's difficult to do, to try and do that. And, but anyway, that would be a concern of mine. The other thing is that I know you're familiar with it, but the LASA grant, you're familiar with how the whole program got started, how they created the tenure track position, how it came into the LASA grant?
No.
Okay. The LASA grant was a grant that, because Oxnard College is a Hispanic serving institution, as is Ventura, and that's how we use this designation as Hispanic serving institution. That's how we end up qualifying and getting our STEM grants, 3-point-some million, and others that we get, because we use that as a designation to apply for grant funding. Well, in 2001, the LASA grant was a grant that was applied for. It was part of a larger grant with Santa Barbara. In fact, I was able to, and I apologize that I didn't have this to you because I just got it. It was back in 2001, and what I wanted to, and this is how this tenure track, what it started out was when LASA was outreach. And that's where one of the students mentioned the high school partnership program, how he had found out about it doesn't exist anymore. Well, that was part of the LASA grant. That was part of when we went to the high schools and started offering the courses and all those things that we build up our, enrollment through that. We had high school students that were being taught in the high schools, and it was really successful. It was great. And that was part of the LASA grant. And the LASA grant was part of Ventura. Ventura College was part of the LASA grant also. But there's one thing in the minutes right here that's in here, and I can get copies to everybody. It says, Dr. Casillas said the Kellogg Foundation made the tenure track position a stipulation, and that without it, OC would not receive the grant. So when the position was created, their whole idea of going out and doing this, it was with the idea of outreaching into the demographic, because it's a Hispanic serving institution, to get out bilingual, to do things. There were some video presentations, outreach to the community, high school partnership, and that was part of the grant to do that. And in 2001, we accepted this grant, and it was with the commitment that Oxnard College would make it a tenure track position, and that we would go in and to do this. Now, along the way, I guess the grant ended. We didn't continue with the outreach. We didn't continue. I mean, whatever reason, however we were doing it, things changed how it did, but we didn't. But originally, so part of the thing is that we make a commitment, and this goes with all our grants, I guess. We make a commitment, we get it, the money runs out, but we designate ourselves, whatever it is, whether it's Hispanic serving institution, whatever we would qualify for. And this is just a statement. I'm not asking you to do this, because this happened even before you got there, but this was a commitment that we made. That what does that mean? And when we decide to do that, and when we accept grant money as based on a Hispanic serving institution, is our commitment go beyond, well, we're committed to it as long as the money's there. When the money's gone, then we're not committed to it anymore. So there's certain things we can't do when the money's gone. But what is it that we believe in, what we do, and how we're going to turn around? Is the need still that was intentionally set up there to serve that population? Does it still exist? Is there still something that needs to be looked at, versus just that it doesn't meet the AA, it doesn't cut this, it doesn't cut that, that there was a larger vision of when it was brought in. So anyway, at the end it says here, the college will be required to institutionalize the position after the first year and ultimately bear the total cost of the position. Okay, and these are from minutes from the Academic Senate meeting. Oxnard College Academic Senate minutes for special meeting of Monday, April 30, 2001. So I just wanted to, because I remember the LASA grant, and because as part of the county, we were part of it. It was a pretty big deal. We were all, we were all involved with that. But I have that I want to give to the chancellor to get to everybody. But I just wanted to bring that up as something that we look at. And other thing is when we're looking at additional infrastructure required, I'd like to, in fact, I want to look at the opportunities that we might have in regards to, I know the city, that you've met with the city prior, prior times you had meetings with them. And I know I've been, I was asked to meet with them yesterday, and I did, and I invited Trustee Blum. He wasn't able to make it. Anyway, there's some ideas there that they want to present. That might be where we can pick up some of those costs in regards to the 100,000 and be able to, because there's franchise fees they need to get. And so without getting into it, there's those possibilities of that money, of that infrastructure money, I think is a very good thing. No, I'm on the motion picture. The LASA grant was about. So, well, that's too bad that you didn't know that I was on something else. Yeah. Anyway, the LASA grant had to do with the tenure track position for the radio and television. Okay. So, anyway, as far as the CIS, I know that from what I've been able to find out that that's something that is across the board, something that we've kind of outgrown. I think that's the only comments I had in regards to what's here so far.
Trustee McKay.
Thank you. I have a couple questions and statements. Accounting, I understand. I took accounting myself, and I think you take financial accounting, get a little excited about it, take cost accounting, and think, oh, I want to be an accountant. That was its effect on me anyway. Sorry, Sue. With television, I'm going to try and stay away from details because I do know far too many. I think most of you know that that is my background. But I think it's great that there'll be teach-out plans so at least the students there can complete. I just want to express I'm not opposed, but I do have concerns about getting into the transportation business. It's complicated. I really don't understand why the completion rate is so low. I don't know if students love television so much that they only take television classes and don't take other things to complete a degree. But it just strikes me as incredibly low compared to how much activity we've had here at the meetings. I do know that we're going to disappoint at Oxnard College and the other two colleges because we're not going to be able to meet the needs of everyone because of the lack of funds that none of us set out to do but have to live with. So again, just wanting to make good decisions, but I think because of all the activity surrounding the television program, I just would like to understand before next week why the completion rates are so low, and then what is the general stance? I know how I feel about it. If students are just coming to take a television program only and not reaching out beyond that, and then how many times can they take the various classes so that they can work on a film or work on a short or whatever it is they're doing? Do they have to take them in sequence? Are there classes in there that they can just take over and over again? And how does it really work? And what is it doing to support it? I do know that as a career path, that television has permanent jobs and then lots and lots of contract level freelance positions. And difficult to measure, but also difficult to be in. I know many television professionals that have been in the business lots of years and aren't working nearly as much as they used to. It is part of it is because the technology has changed so much, and it's just easier to do. It doesn't require the manpower that it once did. So those are my comments for now and concerns with that particular program continuance. Thank you.
Trustee Miller.
Thank you. You left me over here too long. I got a whole list of stuff. First thing, for my, in the last month, I've heard a lecture by a Harvard professor, a professor from San Francisco State, and today at the hearings in Sacramento, the thing that came up more often than anything was persistence. And it's a real difficult thing to solve. And whoever comes up with how do you measure persistence or why or whatever. And so I'm not surprised at all that you have persistence problems. And I know that when I was in community college, I refused to take the hygiene class because I didn't think that a 20-year-old man should have to learn how to brush his teeth from some pipsqueak. And so I never got an AA degree, but I have all the units and everything. But I did just my little stand against the world. Another item are sharing the facilities. Moore Park gave a class at Oxnard several years ago. I was down in the Oxnard biology laboratory and I was looking at the schedule of labs. And I kind of think there's an empty spot here and an empty spot here, these 3-hour spots all over the schedule. And so I went back to Moore Park and was talking to our clerk, and she said, we run labs starting at 7 o'clock Monday morning through Saturday. And we even have some Sunday things now. I said, well, let's see if we can go down there and use some of their labs. And because people who live in that part of the town. And so we looked into it, and it's quite possible. It's you got a little problem with who cleans the lab up. You have to work that out. The productivity thing, just to give you an example, several years ago, there was a faculty member who came to me, this was when I was with the union, who taught piano. And she had a new lab with 12 pianos. Well, how many students would you have in a class if you had 12 pianos? Well, you'd have 12. But the administration signed up 24. So they could sit together and work on the piano. And she had a fit. And so it took quite a bit of doing, but we convinced the administration that, no, you cannot teach piano 2 at a time. And so the productivity was half what it could have been. I want to bring up the new television facility being built in Moore Park, a multi-million-dollar facility, and I'm sure they're going to have demands, and I think they're going to go to Moore Park with their demands rather than all the way across county. So I think it perhaps is wise to get that going with them and partner with them. This guy who's talked about the partnering isn't all that off, but it's got to be continuous. It has to be consistent. And then one last thing I want to bring up, and it has to do with transportation and the desire for education. My story is about Victor. This was years ago at Moore Park. Victor was smuggled into the country from Mexico. And the family got him to relatives in Peru, and he lived in their garage. Victor got up, so we found out, at 4 in the morning and walked from Peru to Moore Park College over Grimes Canyon. And for an 8 o'clock class. He was in our class. I team taught with the man, and We didn't know this because we'd get there at 5 to 8 and he'd be in the room. But we got there early one time and found him sound asleep out on the cement, like a homeless guy. So he said, Victor, what the hell are you doing out here? And my cohort spoke Spanish, so we could make sure we knew what was going on. And he said, well, when school started, he was walking the 4 hours to get to the 8 o'clock class. And then people started getting to know him and they'd pick him up and get him to the school like at 6. So that's why he was sleeping outside. And we went and got him a big coat at the Goodwill, so he'd be warm anyway. But I never will forget Victor's desire for an education and what he did. I mean, can you just imagine walking over Grimes Canyon in the dark and that long, anyway.
Are you suggesting we buy everybody coats?
We could buy everybody coats, we could, and I know how to do it. And I think that's the end of my stories.
Okay, just a couple quick questions. On some of these, you mentioned, like in ceramics and motion picture, that there are programs at the other colleges. Am I correct in assuming that the accounting has programs at?
And Ventura and more part of home.
Is that also true with the computer information system?
No, you'll see with, we're all looking at eliminating that.
All right, that's what I thought. That's what I thought, but I'm not, so I asked the question just to be sure. But thanks for pointing that out, I appreciate it. Are there online classes in accounting?
Not at our campus.
But are there at the other colleges?
The other campuses, yeah.
But there are more part. And you've mentioned, and this is kind of, any of the other college presidents could jump in on this one too, is you've mentioned, productivity rates and completion rates. Am I correct in assuming that transfer rates, you weren't able to factor those in?
Well, these are CT programs. They're not designed to be transferred.
Well, some of them are and some of them aren't, but like the accounting and
It's
others.
not a transfer program.
Okay.
It is listed in our nomenclature as a career technical education. program.
Somebody could transfer and get a BA then.
They could.
And it's not something you can factor in.
In accounting, just for information, the classes, those 2 core classes would probably tend to transfer, only the 2 classes. The rest do not, and the accounting classes do not meet any general education requirements for Oxnard College, CSU, or IGETC requirement, CSU, and UC.
Okay.
They're not designed for that.
I get it. I wanted to ask that question. I got my answer. And the same request that I asked Pam for is if you could get us some information on the productivity rates of some of the programs you did keep. And you started to give us some information.
Yeah, I do have some of that data in other programs.
And that would be helpful because we've gotten a lot of information on the programs you're recommending to not be kept, but very little or anything on programs you want to keep and why. So that would again be helpful. And I think you mentioned it real quickly, and I want to just double check that because you mentioned like job rates and those things are something where they're not able to factor in because it's just the data is too hard to collect. Is that correct?
Well, the job employment data,
Yeah.
that does come from, it's down here, it's called from the Centers for Excellence, and their job is to produce all this employment data. This is also what we use in environmental scans, FTBN, to know, are we having programs that meet community need? How do you determine that? Is there a need for jobs in this area that we can train for?
Okay.
If it's not there, why have a program? So we all use just common data sets to be able to meet that determination.
Okay.
And make the judgment about how we move forward and the need for a program.
Okay.
Who creates that document?
This comes out of the state, and this is a center that's funded by the state. This one happens to be at Modesto Junior College, and I think we used to have that here, did we not? Yeah. So yeah, it's a state-funded center that are available in different parts of the state to produce this kind of data for colleges.
And the last question you mentioned regarding the television program that you were working with President Ed, you're possibly of teaching some classes there, and you're going to get information to, I imagine. Do you have any idea when we might get that?
We'll have a better idea by next week, but part of it is, you have to go through analysis of who's in the program, where are they at in their program instruction, what are the needs of the classes we need to teach them out, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole process we need to go through to
That
make a
would
full
be the question, is
determination.
how long that process would take. So.
Well, that one won't take that long if you approve this. If you decide you don't want to, then we're not going to invest a lot of time and effort in that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. President Collette?